theme is emerging here. Nancy and I work in a Catholic university. Liz works in Catholic education. Paula, you work in TV news.
I decidedly do not.
So this is a hard, well,
Right.
Is it a harder question for you?
My mother
How your
used
Catholic
to say,
faith?
bloom where you are planted. Yes, it's interesting, listening to the similar experiences from 16 years of Catholic education. And I always remember, growing up, really my parents lived by example very much. And then coming to Boston College, I was always very captivated by the Jesuit ideal of learning, growing to be a man or woman for others. That really your education is not in and of itself just for yourself in a selfish way for your own purposes, and that whatever you do, no matter where you are, it's your responsibility to live a Christ-like example. It's interesting because in my adult life after Boston College, I consider my two jobs. I'm raising 4 children, and my husband and I were, two of those kids. We used to go to Mass here together. He was my RA, my dorm. We met right here. God, it was very scandalous. Got married not long after leaving BC and had 4 children in our 20s. And so I was a full-time stay-at-home mother for almost a decade, raising babies and toddlers and then getting them off to Catholic school at our parish school before I went back to work, which news journalism had always been my passion. And I knew I would do it someday, and it worked out. And I was fortunate enough, having grown up in this area where, Boston's just a great news market, considering the universities, medicine, politics, sports, you name it. This is the best TV market in the country in which to work. And so lo and behold, I began at a cable news operation, then I went to New England Cable News. I get a call from the news director at WBZ who hires me, and my first assignment is to cover the sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. And I have to say, I have stood in front of the chancery doing live shots while you were an undergraduate. I have stood in front of parishes. I have had to stand on the sidewalk and interview, Patrick McSorley, who was a victim of a priest, and Mitchell Garabedian, the attorney representing hundreds of victims. And it was extremely painful, I have to say. You have to put all of that aside, obviously, as a professional. It hit me standing in front of the chancery back in 2002 that my great-grandfather, who had come here as a newspaperman to cover the Irish troubles for the local Irish Boston immigrants of the time in the late 1800s, had the incredible opportunity of his lifetime to travel to Rome for the installation of Cardinal O'Connell, who built this mansion so that the Irish Catholics of Boston could say, we have arrived. And 100 years later, I was standing in front of it as it fell down. And it was extremely important to me as a Catholic and a journalist that I had to be able to convey the pure journalism of what was happening. And as a Catholic, and so many of us, just because of the nature of this region, so many of us in news are Catholic, working alongside a lot of non-Catholics who really didn't understand that this is an institution that has to be held accountable. And I think that journalists really tried in those days and up until this point to cover it with fairness, to treat people with dignity, which was extremely important. But I would have my non-Catholic colleagues or friends, you're in the newsroom, you're discussing really horrid, painful episodes, and every once in a while one of them would say to me, how can you walk in one of those buildings? How do you do that after what you know and what you're doing? And I would say to them, you just don't have the memories I have of hundreds of magnificent men and women that I experienced growing up. And the only thing I can compare it to them was that Americans did not renounce their American citizenship after Watergate. There was a responsibility to acknowledge problems where they existed, hold the institution accountable, but move on, because that's your responsibility as a citizen of that institution. And so covering the Catholic Church in the Boston area, while there are great days at Boston College or with Cardinal O'Malley, there are tough days too. And just in news in general, non-Catholic Church news, I think it is important. I saw my father as a surgeon and physician always treat people with such dignity because he was such a devout Catholic and really care for them. And so very often when you're a reporter, you're with people at the very worst moment of their life. And so I think just remembering to treat people with dignity has been the most important thing for my Catholic education in terms of news.